It was supposed to be just another quiet evening on Willow Ridge Lane. The air smelled of freshly cut grass and barbecue smoke, and the streetlights flickered in a soft rhythm like they were breathing with the night. But behind those peaceful windows, something dark was stirring. The Willow Ridge Homeowners Association prided itself on order, trimmed hedges, uniform mailboxes, and rules for everything from garbage bins to garden gnomes. And at the center of it all was Alina Pierce, the HOA president. Perfect posture, perfect smile, perfect control. At least that's what everyone thought. That night, around 9:42 p.m., a black SUV with no license plate rolled quietly into the neighborhood. It didn't belong to anyone on the block. The headlights went off a few houses before Alina, and four men stepped out wearing dark jackets with the word police printed across their chests. Inside her house, Alina was on a call with her vice president, Martin Hale, arguing about a missing $12,000 from the association's maintenance fund. Martin swore he didn't touch it. Alina didn't believe him. Then came the knock. Sharp, firm, controlled. Alina froze. "Who's that at this hour?" she muttered. The knock came again, louder. When she opened the door, the man at the front flashed a badge so quickly she barely saw it. "Mrs. Pierce, we have a warrant for the arrest of Martin Hale." Her eyes widened. "What Martin? What did he?" "Financial fraud," the man interrupted. "We've been tracking him for months. We just need you to confirm he's inside." Alina stammered, "No, he's not here. I was just on the phone with him." The lead officer tilted his head slightly. "Phone call, huh?" he smirked. "Mind if we come in?" Something about his tone made her skin crawl, but she stepped aside anyway. The men walked in, scanning the living room like they were hunting for ghosts. One of them whispered something into his earpiece, but the sound didn't match any real police code Alina had ever heard. When she turned around, the man who'd spoken was staring at a framed photo, one of Alina shaking hands with Martin at the HOA summer gala. He asked almost too casually, "You two seem close." Alina's throat went dry. "We work together, that's all." He nodded slowly, "Sure, that's all." Then, with no warning, the man's expression hardened. "Ma'am, we're going to need you to come with us." Alina blinked. "What, why?" "For questioning," he said, stepping closer. "You're part of the investigation." Before she could speak again, two of the men grabbed her arms. She gasped, struggling. Wait, I didn't do anything." The man flashed the badge again. "You can explain downtown." But Alina noticed something this time. The badge had a small crack in it, a detail so small most people wouldn't notice, but she did. Because Alina Pierce noticed everything. They dragged her toward the door, and in the reflection of the window, she caught a glimpse of her own terrified face, and behind her, a man outside taking pictures with a phone. She screamed, "Who are you people?" But no one answered. The SUV door slammed, the tires screeched, and within seconds the so-called officers were gone. Only the neighborhood dogs barked in the distance, and one porch light flickered out. When the sun rose the next morning, the whole neighborhood buzzed with confusion. Word spread fast: Alina Pierce had been taken away by police. Martin Hale stood at the edge of his driveway, coffee shaking in his hand. His wife whispered, "Do you think it's true? Did she finally get caught?" He didn't answer, because deep down he knew something wasn't right. At 8:03 a.m., Martin received a call from a number he didn't recognize. The voice on the other end said, "Mr. Hale, we have your HOA president. If you want her back, you'll tell us where the money is." Martin froze. "Who is this?" The line went dead. He tried calling back, but the number was disconnected. Then he did something reckless. He called the local police. An officer named Detective Laura Briggs met him at his house within the hour. When Martin told her what had happened, the fake arrest, the SUV, the phone call, she frowned. "There's no record of any arrest under that name," she said, "and no unit was dispatched to your street last night." Martin's blood ran cold. He muttered, "Then who took her?" Briggs looked at him with sharp eyes. "That's what we're going to find out." Meanwhile, in a cold, windowless room, Alina Pierce sat handcuffed to a chair. Her head throbbed, her wrists were raw, and her once perfect hair hung loose across her face. The man from the SUV, the one who'd flashed the cracked badge, leaned against the wall, watching her in silence. After a long moment he said, "You're tougher than I thought. Most people would be crying by now." Eleanor glared at him. "What do you want?" He smiled faintly. "Information." "I don't know anything." He crouched down beside her close enough that she could smell his cologne, faintly metallic like gun oil and mint. "You know exactly where the money went. $12,000 transferred from the HOA maintenance account straight into an offshore shell company. We traced it back to you." Her breath caught. "That's impossible." "Is it?" he whispered. "You were the only one with the access codes." Eleanor shook her head furiously. "No, someone set me up. Martin handled the digital records. He must have framed me." The man straightened, packing slowly around her. "Funny thing about Martin Hale," he said. "He called the cops this morning, real ones." She blinked. "He did." "Yeah, which means we don't have much time." He turned toward the door and nodded to another man outside. "Get the camera ready." Eleanor's heart pounded. "Camera." The man looked back at her. "We're going to make a little video. You're going to confess to everything." Her stomach twisted. "You can't do that." He smiled. "I already am." The lights brightened suddenly, the harsh glare blinding her. A phone camera appeared in front of her face. The man's voice dropped to a whisper. "You want this to end peacefully, say what I tell you." She looked straight into the lens. For a split second, she thought of the neighborhood, the gardens she'd tended, the meetings she'd chaired, the people who trusted her. Then she said softly, "Please, someone help me." But the man cut the recording immediately. "Perfect," he said, "now we wait." By late afternoon, the video began spreading across neighborhood group chats and local social media pages. It showed Eleanor Pierce sitting in a dark room, admitting she'd stolen HOA funds and blaming Martin Hale for catching her. The caption read, "HOA president confesses to fraud, justice served." The video looked real, too real. By evening, every resident on Willow Ridge Lane had seen it. Some celebrated, some were shocked. But Martin Hale just sat in silence, staring at his phone, replaying the clip again and again. Something about her expression didn't fit. Her eyes, they weren't guilty, they were pleading. He whispered to himself, "She's in danger." Detective Briggs called him again that night. "We've been checking every lead," she said. "No known police operation, no SUV matching that description, but your HOA account, it was hacked 2 weeks ago." Hacked? Martin asked. "Yeah, the transfer wasn't to any offshore company, it was sent to a prepaid crypto wallet, untraceable." Martin rubbed his face. "So this was planned?" Briggs nodded. "By someone who knows both of you, someone inside the HOA." Meanwhile, in that dark room, Eleanor was losing track of time. The men had left her alone, except for brief moments when one brought her water or checked her restraints. Hours passed before the door opened again, but this time it wasn't the man with the cracked badge, it was someone new. A tall figure stepped in, face hidden behind a mask. His voice was smooth, calm, disturbingly familiar. "Eleanor," he said, "you always were too confident." Her eyes widened. "I know that voice." He took off the mask. Eleanor's heart nearly stopped. "You," she whispered. It was Greg Summers, the HOA treasurer, the quiet, polite man who'd always handled the community's taxes and maintenance payments, the one who'd once brought cookies to every meeting. He smiled, surprised. "Why are you doing this?" she demanded. Greg's eyes darkened. "Because you and Martin tried to push me out, you thought I didn't notice when you voted me off the finance committee. I built this neighborhood, Eleanor, every wall, every loan, every deal, and you two treated me like an errand boy." Eleanor's voice shook. "So you stole the money?" He shrugged. "I moved it, temporarily. I was going to put it back, but then you started snooping." She spat. "You could have talked to me." He leaned closer. "I did, you just didn't listen." Greg gestured toward the fake officer outside. "They're professionals, former private contractors, they help clean up situations like this." Eleanor's blood ran cold. "You're going to kill me." He smiled faintly. "Not if Martin cooperates, he'll confess too once he realizes what's at stake." Eleanor's voice cracked. "You think he'll believe this?" Greg smirked. "He already does, the whole neighborhood does." He stepped back, adjusting his jacket. "By tomorrow, everyone will think you both stole the money. I'll become interim president, fix everything, and play the hero. No one will ever know the truth." He turned to leave. But as the door closed, Alina whispered, "You'll regret this, Greg." He paused just for a second, then laughed softly. "You always did have a flair for drama." The door locked behind him, and the lights went out again. In the darkness, Alina whispered to herself, "If I get out of here alive, I'll burn everything he's built." That night, thunder rolled across the horizon. Martin Hale stood on his porch, staring at the dark SUV tracks on the street. The rain washed them away slowly, like the neighborhood itself was trying to erase the evidence. He whispered, "Whoever you are, I'll find you." And somewhere, deep inside an abandoned warehouse on the edge of town, Alina Pierce sat alone, waiting for dawn, unaware that the next 24 hours would uncover a secret far bigger than stolen money. A secret that would destroy everything she thought she knew about the people living just beyond her perfect white fence. Rain poured through broken skylights as the storm hit its peak. Inside the warehouse, water dripped from steel beams onto the cold concrete floor, forming small puddles near Alina's feet. She'd been awake for hours, mind racing, pulse steady only because fear had burned itself into focus. The sound of a distant car engine echoed through the walls, then came footsteps, 2 sets, slow and deliberate. The man with the cracked badge entered first, followed by Greg Summers. They didn't speak at first. Greg leaned against a metal table, watching Alina the way a scientist might watch an experiment. Finally, Greg said, "You should try to sleep, you look exhausted." Alina lifted her head, her voice rough. "I'll sleep when I'm dead, is that your plan anyway?" Greg smiled faintly. "You always misunderstood me, Alina. I don't want you dead, I want you silenced, 2 very different things." He gestured for the fake officer to unlock her cuff from the chair. "Untie her left hand," he said. "She's not going anywhere." As the man obeyed, Alina felt the cold air hit her wrist where the metal had bitten deep. She winced but kept her face unreadable. Greg continued, "Tomorrow morning you'll be found somewhere public, calm, shaken but unharmed. The news will say you confessed under stress, fled town and then came back. You'll resign quietly, Martin will follow, and I'll handle the HOA from there." Alina said nothing. She was listening carefully, memorizing every word. He crouched down, meeting her eyes. "You always wanted control. Well, this is what losing it feels like." Then, for a moment, his mask slipped. There was something behind that arrogance, fear, a flicker of desperation that told her maybe Greg's plan wasn't as clean as he wanted her to believe. When they left the room again, locking the door behind them, Alina slowly flexed her freed wrist. One hand was still cuffed to the chair, but now she could move barely. Her fingers brushed the floor until they found something cold and thin, a shard of broken glass from the window above. Her pulse quickened. She began sawing quietly at the cloth binding her other wrist. The rain covered the faint scraping sound. Every minute felt like an hour. Finally, with one last twist, the fabric tore. She was free. Alina stood, dizzy from hunger, her body aching. The door was locked, but the window, the one with the broken pane, was just within reach if she climbed onto the chair. She whispered to herself, "You built this neighborhood, you can survive this." Using the chair for balance, she pulled herself up, cut her palm on the jagged glass and pushed her way through the narrow opening. The rain hit her face like needles, but she didn't care. She slid down the outer wall and fell into the mud. Behind her, faint voices echoed inside the building. Someone had noticed the noise. She ran. By dawn, Alina reached the outskirts of town, barefoot, drenched, and trembling. She found herself behind a row of abandoned houses, overgrown with ivy and silence. She collapsed against a tree, trying to catch her breath. Her mind replayed Greg's words, "Tomorrow morning you'll be found." No, not this way, she wouldn't be their puppet. From the pocket of her jacket, she pulled a small memory stick, one she'd hidden weeks ago after noticing strange discrepancies in HOA records. She kept it with her out of paranoia. Now it was the only piece of proof she had. But she needed someone she could trust. And that list was getting very short. Meanwhile, across town, Martin Hale hadn't slept. The house was dark except for the dim glow of his laptop screen. Dozens of browser tabs filled his screen, property ledgers, bank transfers, HOA bylaws. He'd been digging for hours, desperate to find anything that might prove Alina innocent. Then he saw it in an old financial report dated 3 months earlier. It listed a construction payment to Summers Property Services. That wasn't unusual. Greg's company handled small repairs around the neighborhood, but this payment was for $12,000, the exact amount missing. Martin muttered, "You clever snake." He immediately called Detective Briggs. "Detective, I found something, you need to look at this." Briggs sighed through the phone. "Martin, I've got units checking every warehouse within 20 miles, but if what you have connects Greg Summers to this, send it now." Martin emailed the files, but before he could speak again, a black sedan pulled up outside his house. He frowned. "Detective, did you send someone?" "No," she said quickly. "Why?" Headlights cut across his window. A knock rattled the front door. Martin whispered, "They're here." Briggs's voice sharpened, "Do not open that door." But Martin had already moved. He grabbed the nearest thing he could use, a metal flashlight, and peered through the peephole. Two men in black jackets stood outside. No police markings this time, just cold expressions and earpieces. Martin's mind raced. He backed away, heart pounding. Then the door handle started to turn. He ran toward the back, slammed the kitchen door open, and sprinted into the rain. Eleanor, miles away, had made it to a gas station. She stole a hooded sweatshirt from the lost and found bin, washed the blood from her hands in the restroom sink, and stared at her reflection. Her eyes looked hollow, but alive. She asked the clerk to use the phone. He nodded without looking up. She dialed Martin's number, no answer, then she tried again. This time someone picked up, but it wasn't him. A voice she didn't recognize said, "Martin Hale can't come to the phone right now." Eleanor froze. "Who is this?" The line went silent, then a faint laugh, click, disconnected. Her heart sank. Oh God. She stepped outside, clutching the phone. That's when she saw it, a car parked across the street, same SUV as before, engine running, headlights off. She ducked behind a vending machine, watching. The passenger door opened and a tall man stepped out, not Greg but one of his hired officers. He scanned the area slowly, hand resting on his belt. Eleanor whispered to herself, "They found me." The man turned his head sharply, like he'd heard her voice through the storm. She held her breath, pressing flat against the metal. The rain hammered louder. He waited a few seconds, then got back into the SUV and drove off. Eleanor didn't move until the tail lights disappeared completely. When she finally exhaled, tears mixed with the rain on her cheeks. She whispered, "I need to find Briggs." Detective Laura Briggs sat in her car outside the precinct, typing up her report when her phone rang. The number was blocked, but something told her to answer. She pressed the call button. "Briggs." A faint, trembling voice said, "Detective, it's Eleanor Pierce." Briggs straightened. "Eleanor, are you safe?" "No, they're still looking for me. They have Martin." Briggs's jaw tightened. "Where are you?" Eleanor hesitated, scanning the street, near the old Shell station on Highway 9. "I'm 5 minutes out," Briggs said. "Stay hidden, don't talk to anyone." Inside the black SUV, Greg sat silently in the back seat, watching raindrops trail down the window. The man with the cracked badge drove, radio buzzing softly with static. "She got away," the man muttered. Greg didn't react. Of course she did. She always finds a way to ruin everything. The driver asked, "Want me to find her?" Greg leaned back, thinking, "No, not yet, let her run." The more desperate she looks, the more believable her breakdown becomes. He pulled out his phone, scrolling through the neighborhood forum. The posts were already piling up. Eleanor gone rogue. HOA corruption finally exposed. Martin might be involved too. Greg smiled faintly. "See, I don't need to chase her, the neighborhood will destroy her for me." But what Greg didn't know was that Eleanor had just climbed into Detective Briggs's car. Briggs handed her a blanket and said, "You're lucky you called when you did. Every officer in this county is looking for a black SUV. You're not safe here." Eleanor's voice was steady but low. "You need to arrest Greg Summers." Briggs nodded. "We're getting there, but we need solid proof." Eleanor handed her the memory stick. "That's everything. Emails, invoices, payments, all showing Greg moved HOA money into his own accounts." Briggs connected it to her laptop. "If this checks out, he's done." But then Eleanor added softly, "There's something else. He's planning something for tomorrow. He said I'd be found in public. I think he means to stage something." Briggs frowned. "Like what?" Eleanor whispered, "A confession, or worse, a body." The next morning, the Willow Ridge HOA held an emergency meeting at the community hall. The room was packed, neighbors whispering, phones recording, tension so thick you could taste it. Greg Summers stood at the podium in a crisp navy suit. His voice was calm, polished, almost too perfect. "Good morning, everyone. I know there's been chaos these last few days, but I assure you the association is stable. I've been in touch with the authorities and we're cooperating fully. Our goal is to protect this neighborhood." Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Someone shouted, "What about Alina? Is she alive?" Greg paused for dramatic effect. "Unfortunately, Mrs. Pierce is under investigation for embezzlement. As for her location, we believe she's fled town." He let that hang in the air. Then added, "But we forgive her, people make mistakes." The room buzzed, some with anger, others with pity. From the back of the hall, Detective Briggs watched quietly, blending in with the crowd. She wore plain clothes, eyes locked on Greg. Beside her, Alina sat in disguise, hood up, face lowered. Greg continued, "With your approval, I'll step in as interim president until we restore order." He smiled, for the good of Willow Ridge. The audience clapped hesitantly. Briggs leaned toward Alina. "He's trying to make himself look innocent." Alina whispered, "Let him finish." But then something unexpected happened. Greg's phone buzzed on the podium. He frowned, checked the screen, and froze. Briggs noticed. "What is it?" On the projector behind him. The hall screen suddenly lit up, showing a video feed, the same video that had gone viral 2 days earlier, Alina's confession. But this time it kept going. After the part where Alina pleaded for help, a new clip appeared showing Greg walking into the room after filming, taking money from a duffel bag and laughing with his hired men. The crowd gasped. Greg's face went pale. "Turn that off," he shouted, but the video kept playing. Briggs smirked. "We didn't upload that." Alina stood, pulling down her hood. The room erupted in whispers. Greg's voice broke. How did you?" Alina stepped closer, her voice cold as steel. "You should have checked your own security cameras, Greg. That footage was stored in the warehouse system. You erased everything but forgot the cloud backup." Greg's hand trembled. "You think this proves anything?" Briggs pulled out her badge. "It proves enough." The crowd parted as officers entered from the back doors, surrounding him. Greg backed away, eyes darting toward the exit. But then he laughed, that same unsettling laugh Alina remembered. "You think you've won." Briggs said, "It's over, Summers." Greg's voice turned sharp. "No, it's just beginning." He grabbed his phone, pressed something, and within seconds the lights in the hall flickered. The projectors glitched, alarms blared. Briggs shouted, "Everyone out now." Chaos erupted, chairs scraping, people screaming, phones dropping. Alina looked back once more and saw Greg slip through a side door, vanishing into the smoke-filled corridor. Briggs ran after him, gun drawn, shouting, "Stop." Alina stood frozen in the middle of the crowd, heart pounding. Greg was gone, but his words echoed in her head. "It's just beginning." Outside, the rain started again, softer this time, almost cleansing. But deep down, Alina knew this wasn't the end. Somewhere out there, Greg still had allies, and if he'd planned this far, he wasn't finished yet. Because the truth about Willow Ridge was far darker than stolen money. And Alina Pierce had only uncovered the first layer. Greg Summers didn't run far. By the time the police sealed off the community hall, he was already halfway to the industrial district, the same area where he'd held Alina captive. The city skyline flickered with blue sirens in the distance, but Greg drove like a man possessed, muttering to himself the whole way. They weren't supposed to find that footage, no one was supposed to. He hit the steering wheel, rage trembling through his hands. From the passenger seat, the man with the cracked badge said quietly, "They've got your face, Greg, it's over." Greg shot him a sharp look. "Not yet, not until I get what I came for." The man didn't answer, just kept watching the road ahead. The rain hit harder now, drowning out their words. For a long moment, neither spoke. Finally, Greg said, "You were supposed to delete everything." "I did," the man replied, "except one thing." Greg's tone darkened. "What thing?" The man's lips curved into a thin smile. "Insurance." Greg stared at him. "What do you mean, insurance?" Without looking back, the man said, "You think I work for you, Greg? You were just a name on a contract. I was hired to clean up a problem, not become one." Greg's eyes widened. "Who hired you?" The man finally turned his head, smirk deepening. "The same person who told me to make you think you were in control." And in that instant, Greg realized he wasn't running the show anymore. He was part of someone else's game. Meanwhile, Detective Briggs sat with a leaner in a temporary police safe house. The small room buzzed with tension, maps, photos, and notes covering every inch of the wall. Briggs paced. "Greg had gone dark. He has at least one accomplice, possibly two, but something doesn't fit." Alina frowned. "What do you mean?" Briggs pointed at the photos. "Look at this pattern. The fake police badges, the SUV, the warehouse lease, they all trace back to the same shell corporation. Wraith Security Consulting, registered under a fake name, but that company was dissolved 3 months ago, right before the first HOA funds went missing." Eliner's voice dropped. "So someone else created this setup." Briggs nodded. "Someone bigger. Greg may have thought he was running the scam, but he was just the bait." Eliner whispered, "Then who's behind it?" Before Briggs could answer, her phone buzzed. An anonymous message popped up on the screen. "You can't protect her forever." Briggs cursed under her breath. "They're watching us." At the same time, Greg's SUV pulled into a deserted lot near the docks. The air smelled of salt and oil. The man with the cracked badge, his name was Silas, got out first, lighting a cigarette under the flickering lamplight. Greg followed, shouting over the wind, "Who are you working for, Silas?" Silas exhaled a thin stream of smoke. "You really don't get it, do you? None of this was about HOA money, that was just the cover story." Greg's confusion turned to anger. "Then what the hell was it about?" Silas turned, his voice calm and unnervingly steady. "Data." Greg blinked. "What data?" "Willow Ridge's internal network," Silas said. "Security feeds, home cameras, resident profiles. You people built a surveillance goldmine without even realizing it. The HOA collects it all to monitor property violations, right? Well, someone else wanted that information, and they were willing to pay." Greg stepped back, realization dawning. "You mean someone's been spying on the entire neighborhood?" Silas smiled faintly. "Not someone, everyone." Back at the safe house, Eliner stared at the same files on Briggs's laptop, her pulse quickening as she read the metadata. Each HOA member had a digital profile, income, security footage, purchase records, all stored in an encrypted system Greg's company had installed 2 years ago. Eliner's voice shook. "We never approved this. Greg said it was just for maintenance tracking." Briggs muttered, "It was more than that. He built a network of hidden cameras across the neighborhood. Whoever controls those feeds has leverage on every resident." Eliner whispered, "That's why they needed me out of the way." Briggs nodded grimly. "You were the only one who could access the system's override key." Eliner realized then she hadn't been framed because of stolen money. She'd been framed because of what she knew. At the docks, Greg backed away from Silas. "So you used me to get the data." Silas shrugged. "You were useful until you were." Greg's voice rose. "You think you can just kill me and take it all?" Silas dropped his cigarette, crushing it under his boot. "Kill you? No, Greg, you'll do that part yourself." Before Greg could respond, a faint click echoed behind him, the sound of a phone camera starting to record. Silas smirked. "Smile, the world loves a confession." Greg turned, but a gunshot rang out before he could move. The phone fell into the puddle, the screen flashing red as Greg collapsed beside it. Silas looked down, sighing softly. "Amateurs." He picked up the phone, wiped the lens clean, and sent the recording to an encrypted address. The message read, "Phase 1 complete. The HOA president survived, proceeding with containment." By evening, Briggs received a tip, a body found near the docks. When they arrived, rain still pouring, Eliner froze at the sight. Greg Summers lay motionless under a tarp, eyes open, expression frozen in fear. But beside him, Briggs found something unexpected, a small recording device half crushed but still blinking. She knelt, pressing play. A distorted voice filled the air. None of this was about money, it was about data. Someone's watching everyone. Briggs looked up, face pale. He wasn't lying. Eliner stared at the dark waves rolling against the pier. Then who's next? That night, as they returned to the safe house, Briggs received another anonymous message. Nice try, but we're already inside your system. Seconds later, the lights flickered. Her computer screen went black, replaced by a single line of text. WLLOWRIDGE will clean itself. Briggs grabbed her phone. They've hacked our network. Eleanor whispered, that's what they've been doing from the start, cleaning up anyone who knows the truth. Across town, security cameras on Willow Ridge Lane flickered one by one. Front yards went dark, smart locks clicked open, alarm systems shut off. And in the silence that followed, a single SUV rolled back into the neighborhood, the same one from before, headlights dimmed. Inside it sat Silas, watching the dark houses like a predator studying its prey. He whispered into his earpiece, Phase 2, start with the ones who ask too many questions. Static answered him, then a voice replied, and the president. Silas smiled, she'll come to us. Back inside, Eleanor stood at the window, staring at the rain. Detective, they're not after me anymore, they're after the whole neighborhood. Briggs checked her gun. Her jaw tightening, then we end this tonight. Eleanor turned to her, how, we don't even know who's pulling the strings. Briggs met her eyes, maybe we don't have to find them, maybe we make them come to us. They hatched a plan before dawn. Eleanor would go live, a broadcast across the HOA network using her old president credentials. She'd reveal everything, the fake arrest, Greg's betrayal, the data theft. It was risky, but it might draw the real mastermind out. At sunrise, she sat in front of the camera, voice steady. My name is Eleanor Pierce. I was the president of the Willow Ridge HOA until I was kidnapped by fake police hired to frame me. They said it was about money, but it was about you, your cameras, your data, your lives. As she spoke, her words streamed across hundreds of devices in the neighborhood, phones, TVs, even security screens. She continued, if anything happens to me, this message will stay online. The truth will be recorded. Then she leaned forward, voice soft but firm, whoever you are, I know you're watching, so come find me. Briggs whispered from behind the camera, here we go. Miles away, in a dark control room lit only by monitors, Silas watched the broadcast. Behind him stood a shadowed figure, a woman's silhouette, calm and silent. Silas muttered, she's good, clever, she's baiting us. The woman stepped closer, her voice smooth as glass, then take the bait. Silas nodded once, pulling out his phone, on my way. The woman smiled faintly, bring her in alive, we'll need her to unlock the rest. Back at the safe house, Eleanor's broadcast ended. She stood, exhaling slowly. Now we wait. Briggs checked her watch, they'll come. Eleanor nodded, good, because I'm done hiding. Outside, the first light of morning crept through the clouds, cutting through the mist like a blade. And somewhere beyond that pale sunrise, the real storm was about to begin, one that would finally reveal who had been orchestrating the chaos from the shadows of Willow Ridge all along. The night was colder than usual. The HOA's perfect lawns glistened under the streetlights, but beneath that calm surface something rotten was breathing. The fake police, the staged arrest, the betrayal, it all pointed to something deeper. Mia stood by her window, unable to sleep. Her phone buzzed again, an unknown number. Stop digging, the voice whispered, or you'll end up like Daniel. Her blood turned cold. She had never mentioned Daniel's name to anyone outside the HOA. How did they know? The next morning, the neighborhood woke to find the HOA office ransacked, files missing, cameras broken. The president, Harold, was nowhere to be found. Residents whispered, speculating that he ran off, but Mia had a different feeling. He hadn't run, he was silenced. Desperate for answers, she retraced everything, the fake police badges, the unmarked cars, the hidden tunnel under the HOA's storage unit. And then she found it, a metal box sealed under the old community garden. Inside were files, documents revealing illegal property deals, embezzlement, and names of everyone involved, including Harold, including the police chief. And Daniel. He wasn't a random target, he was a whistleblower, someone who found out what the HOA had been doing, laundering money through false property fines, fake repairs, and secret accounts. The fake police were never fake, they were real officers doing real dirty work for HOA elites. Mia's hands trembled. She recorded everything, uploaded the files to multiple cloud drives. Then she made a call to an investigative journalist she trusted. But just before she could send the final file, she noticed movement outside her window, a figure in black standing still, staring directly at her house. Her heart raced. She turned off the light and backed away from the glass. The figure slowly raised something, a phone, and its screen lit up with one word: stop. The following morning, news spread like wildfire. The HOA was under investigation. Several arrests had been made. Harold was found alive but under police protection. Yet Mia's house was empty, door open, coffee still warm, phone left on the counter. Weeks later, a USB drive was mailed anonymously to a news station. On it, a recording of Mia's voice. If you're hearing this, they found me, but the truth is already out. The HOA was never about homes or safety, it was about control, and now they've lost it. The camera zooms out on the quiet neighborhood, the manicured lawns, the fake smiles, the new HOA sign being put up. The world moved on, but the whispers never stopped. Somewhere deep in the shadows of that perfect suburb, a new message appears in the HOA inbox. Welcome to the neighborhood, we're watching.